Right,
Okay.
right. And,
I know.
and if you look at page 45, this is the Middlesex Regional. It's the same thing, but for Middlesex Regional. And the unfunded liability is the fourth column over, and it's $923 million. But if you look at it, they back in the beginning, the funded ratio, it was in 1996, it was 58% funded, and at 62, it's 62, and it's really taken a decline. And I think you actually kind of dodged the bullet, because I've seen the Essex County one was done 2011, and that was a really bad time for their market. I mean, theirs dropped. They had a high of 75% funded, and now they're down to 52% funded. And so I don't know. I think that by the time they need their 2012 one, the market will have come back up for them. But your share of the unfunded $923 million, if you go to the next page, it shows you what the total contributions that are required into this Middlesex system. And we just have to put this in to make sure show the readers that the pension system is getting funded. And they are on a funding plan, although it keeps getting extended. So they were supposed to be fully funded by 2026. When the market fell, they pushed it out so that they didn't have to increase your assessments that much to still stay within that 2026. So your share of the contributions is about 2.73%. So, theoretically, your share of the liability is about 2.73% of the 923 million.
So it's 25 million.
Yeah. So,
So going back to that one there on the third column, percentage contributed,
yep,
100%?
Yep.
That's just saying that the
That's-
towns
yep. That's
percentage
saying that.
contributed to,
Yeah, we get this information, those 2 pages, we get that off of Middlesex County's, Middlesex Regional's financial statements that they have, actuarial study. They're saying that all the towns are giving them what they're assessed.
right, so it's not just North Reading, it's everybody.
Right, yeah, that's
Okay.
everybody. And for the town of North Reading is on the right 2 columns. That's yours.
The actual contributions.
The actual
Yeah, no, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, as far as the percentage contributed, that's just referring to all of
Yeah,
Middlesex.
oh, yes, yeah.
Mr. President?
I had a question on page 8. I thought our AA2 rating with Moody's, didn't we first receive that in 2010?
That's right.
And here it says it's A1.
That was the prior rate.
That's a miss on my part. I did know that.
Oh, okay.
too.
All right, so,
Apologize. I'll fix
but it
that.
should say A2, right?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely should. And I heard that you did reserve your rating.
Yes. Great.
Dick, there used to be something in the balance sheet that was called the undesignated fund balance,
Right.
which is kind of from an administration point of view, kind of the number that mattered. What is that
Well-
number now?
That's what that new GASB 54 says, and it's part of that unassigned in there, that 3,050,000, but now that includes the stabilization fund,
You gotta back those numbers up.
down on page
So- okay.
13.
So over a period of time, that number will become more relevant because we'll be able to compare it over a period of time.
Correct.
What would we compare it to today?
It's tough to compare because the stabilization, if you backed out the stabilization fund from it, then that would get you to the prior year, so.
Right.
Just the general stabilization
Mm.
fund of about 1.7. So, but that's the problem with when they have new standards that
I know.
it changes.
You kind of lose your
Yeah.
reference point.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because that used to be one of the key numbers in the whole balance sheet and financials,
You
is
know,
what that number was.
I tell you, I really think that it's right that they include the stabilization fund in with the general fund, because in the past, I mean, in my opinion, it is free cash by another name. It's something that's a reserve that you put in, and if you didn't move that over into the stabilization fund and just kept it as part of your free cash, I mean, you would have a huge unreserved, undesignated fund balance. And to me, it makes your financial position look better than to have just your general fund in there with, a much lower unreserved fund balance, and then having to tell readers, oh, by the way, we have a stabilization fund too, that's kind of hidden in with the non-major funds, and it's really the same thing as general fund free cash, only we have to, it requires a 2/3 vote instead of a, general vote on something. So in my opinion, that was good, but as you said, the reference point is gone for now.
Dick, I think I saw it last year too. There are a few different areas where we don't have certain policies. You point that out.
Yeah.
What's the downside of not having it? What's your recommendation
Well,
concerning the ones that we don't have and should
well,
have?
I think the investment policy is a very important one for you to have, because I think that's where a big risk is point in fact right now, $50 million, what are you gonna do with it? Should that be, whose decision should that be, and I think it protects the treasurer too, to have a policy in place. I kinda use an example that, there's something called a Veribank report that rates, banks, and it comes out quarterly, and the highest rating is green, 4 stars, and then it goes down to different colors with less stars. And if somebody was a treasurer and I was a selectman, and the bank failed and they had money in it, and I would say, how did that happen? And if they told me, I don't know, I listen, I read the Wall Street Journal, I keep my eyes open, I thought it was a good bank, well, I wouldn't be very happy. But if they said, look, we have an investment policy, it says if the bank goes below green 3 stars, we pull the money out. Here's my track record. I have a quarterly report that I fill out that shows what the bank's ratings are for all my banks every quarter for the last 5 years. Anytime it moved, I lost money. I mean, anytime a bank went below this, I pulled the money out. I don't know what else I could have done. And it was within the policy that the board agreed. I mean, we'd still lose the money, but I'd say, you know what, I don't know what else you could have done. You followed our policy and you did your due diligence. So I think that that's an important one to have a policy on. And I know you do use the Veribank report, right? Because we look at that and she marks down what they have. But there is no policy right now on if it goes below a certain rating. And it's one of those ones that I think you gotta do quick, because I've had a couple places that have set up policies that said, well, if it goes below green 4 stars or 3 stars, the first one it's on a watch list. And then if it goes out another one, then we're gonna move the money. Well, it's a quarterly report, and it comes out a quarter after the events have occurred. And so, 6 months later, I mean, if you wait another 3 months, who knows? So if I was doing it, I would say if it falls below a certain rate, whatever our risk tolerance is, it's gone, and when it goes back up, you can move it back in. One of my treasurers was a former CFO of a bank, and I suggested that he do this, and he said, what for? I mean, he goes, I can read the financial statements better than, and so I was looking at one with him, and he's like, he knows the banks better than I do, and he showed me that, well, this bank took some losses in this period, that's why, he did that further analysis, said, I knew it took some losses in this period, that's why it fell low on the Veribank report, and its next quarter is gonna be fine, and he was right, so, but, I don't have the expertise to do that myself with a bank, and so, and I don't expect that many do, so I think it's a good thing to have. And I think we talked about before having kind of a policy manual on your internal controls over the step-by-step process on what happens in a collector's office and the reconciling procedures that are required, a step-by-step basis, so that the policies, and have it come to you guys and you accept it, so that the policies are the town's policies and not not the person who is in the position right now. Not that they can't change, if a new person comes in and says, look, I think that we should do this way, and there'll be a better control. I think it should be a, you know, kind of a living internal control manual, and that is subject to change, but that if somebody new comes in, that they have something to go to and say, okay, this is what we expect, this is how we're run here, we run a good ship, and this is what we expect. And we expect cash to be reconciled by a certain period of time, receivables, and this is the flow and process.
Would you have some samples you could share with us, or?
I think I can come up with some, a couple,
Okay.
No, I don't have any real formal ones, like, I have a couple places. You know what I suggested, and I think is that we do an internal control narrative over your various cycles. And so I like to say, here, take this as a starting point, because we're trying to say what your step-by-step process are. Start with this and polish it up a little bit, because ours is just for doing our testing. And I think that it'd be a good starting point for you to do a policy for each place, each system.
Greg, okay. Can I suggest maybe within a month's time, your staff can get something together for us to review?
Sure.
Sure.
Oh, Mr. Misery, sorry.
That's what I was gonna suggest.
You taught me well. Mr. O'Leary?
We had I don't know where you would have or could have captured it or assisted us. We had a breakdown in internal controls in one of our departments in a payroll situation. I don't know if you were made aware of it or not. You were not? Okay.
No.
Well, we did.
Oh,
And,
I don't think so.
okay,
I
okay. During your reviews, at any point, do you delve into it that deeply where you may take a look at,
What we do for payroll is, we, depending on our test, we take a sample, and probably it's usually around 25. And we'll take, we'll look at a check register or report, we'll do a random sample, and take the beginning check number or direct deposit and the ending, and just do 25 throughout the
and
system.
this had more to do with the submission of timesheets and time records for employees as to when they submitted it so that they could get paid. And there was a holdout of time records so that they were actually controlling the flow of hours that they were getting paid for.
See, we just see the document
Right.
when it comes in, and if they get paid, and if
Well,
they
they
got.
eventually get paid along the way, but it's a question of whether they paid on a timely basis or not. The answer was no, because two reasons. One, internally, we weren't controlling the system very well, and the employee was in control of some of the time slips.
Yeah. I'm not sure how we would know that unless the time period that he was getting paid for didn't coincide with the period of the payroll. So if he has a timesheet that has hours other than the 2-week pay period, then maybe we catch that. But what we do is we multiply, we'll take up the pay that they're supposed to get, calculate it out by hours, and make sure it's got
But
paid.
again, the information that you would be seeing is only as good as what was submitted anyway.
Right, right, so we don't
So if someone
know,
had it in their back pocket, you wouldn't necessarily know.
no, we wouldn't know that.
You know, other than unless there was some reconciliation between the time worked and the overtime that was due, and then what was actually submitted for payment. And that's where the reconciliation didn't occur.
Yeah.
It should have. And I guess we have it corrected now. I hope we have it corrected now.
Yeah.
But you might
Yeah.
want
We
to, you might want to consult with, just,
Yeah,
oh, by the way,
I'll
with
find out.
Liz or Greg,
yeah,
and
so we can look
Just-
for it next time.
just to
Yeah.
be aware, and maybe it's something that you want to include in
That's-
your scope.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like Greg said, we work for you, so if there's something that's bothering you, then we send a letter out before we start the audit saying that we're commencing it, and if there's something that, we do that for the purpose of you guys knowing we're coming, and if you have something that's bothering you and you want us to look at, then, that's what we're here for.
Mr. Prisco?
One of the things that I've only been here a couple of years, but prior to myself coming here, this board took on the investment of Munis. And I think you're very familiar with Munis.
Yep.
And you kind of see where we are as a town with Munis. And do you feel that we're ahead of the game, behind the game? Do you think that we need to make some investments now?
Yeah, I really think that you need to get the collector's package